It's the Go Gopher Podcast with Mike Grimm, episode number 165. I am Mike Grimm, voice of the Golden Gophers, and welcome back to the podcast. This week, we're talking Golden Gopher football as spring drills roll on. Minnesota tight ends coach Eric Koehler is my guest this week. He'll bring us insight into spring ball, his positional group at the tight ends. We'll take a look at the quarterback situation and his journey through the coaching ranks to get to the Big Ten and the Golden Gophers. You're really going to enjoy my conversation this week. Eric Koehler is my guest. Our Go Gopher podcast is presented by alumni-owned Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're a business founder planning to exit your business, start by contacting Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. Sunbelt serves more businesses up to $5 million in revenue than anyone, and True North M&A serves companies with revenues up to $150 million. Get a confidential, no-cost, no-obligation business valuation started today. Hey, make the most of your life's work. Visit sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com today. Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union is also a big sponsor of the Go Gopher podcast. Life math is complicated, and Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union makes it easier with local financial experts available to help in person or virtually. Banking for Minnesotans, from Pee-wees to the pros. Visit affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. The Go Gopher podcast is also presented by OnX Maps. Find out how to download the OnX Fish app for free by listening to the Go Gopher podcast. We're podcasting episode 165 from the Aquarius Home Services studio. We invite you to subscribe to the Go Gopher podcast. It's free to subscribe. That makes it free to listen at any time. You can go back and listen to past Go Gopher podcasts. Last episode, for example, we talked Golden Gopher hockey with forward Connor Kurth in just a fabulous conversation. This week, it's Golden Gopher football with tight ends coach Eric Koehler. He'll join me next.
I'm Clay Geary, walk-on turned scholarship wide receiver for Gopher football.
And I'm Ben Utek, U of M alumni, Super Bowl champion, and Tony Dungy Uncommon Award winner.
We understand championship culture, which is why we're part of the True North family of companies.
True North invests in only elite teams, like the champion team at Sunbelt Business Advisors, Minnesota's largest seller of companies. To learn more about True North and our diverse family of independently owned companies, visit TrueNorthEquityPartners.com.
Keep the good times rolling without the regrets. Giggly THC beverages are your go-to for bold flavor and smooth vibes. Zero alcohol, no bad decisions. Just THC-infused cocktails, seltzers, and teas packed with natural ingredients and performance-boosting superfoods like ashwagandha and ginseng. Find Giggly at over 500 locations like Total Wine, MGM, and Cub Foods, or shop online at giggly.com. That's GIGLI.com. Ready to upgrade your drink game? Use the code Giggly North, as in Giggly Talk North. Giggly North, GIGLI North, for 50% off your first order. Giggly, sip smarter, feel better.
It's episode 165, and we are talking Golden Gopher football. We are in the midst of spring practice, and tight ends coach Eric Koehler has been kind enough to join us here on the Go Gopher podcast, and great to have you on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be on.
Well, we've got kind of a Wartburg guy and a Luther guy here. I went to Luther. You coached at Wartburg, so we can hang out in the same room, but barely.
Yeah, barely. That's a fairly heated rivalry. I don't know, probably just for a time limit on how long we can sit by one another.
Yeah, two good Lutheran schools, one known for sports and one known for singing, and I went to the one known for singing. So there you go. What do you know?
You said it, Mike.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. That's for sure. We can sing at Luther. There's no doubt about that. And play musical instruments, but they're trying. They're getting there. But Wartburg's been quite a factory for a while.
Yeah, they've done. It's been great ever since I was even there back in the early 2000s, and I'm really proud of them because the head coach now there is a kid that played for us.
Yeah.
So it's really fun to watch them.
Well, we're going to save some of our Iowa Conference discussion for later in the podcast, where we'll get into some football right now in terms of the Gophers. So it's about the midway point of spring drills here. You get 15 practices, and I know PJ mentioned that maybe there would be a little bit different approach this year with a couple of OTA-style workouts or more walkthroughs and different things. So as a tight ends coach, give me your assessment of what you're seeing kind of as the team and then also with your positional group.
Well, I think we're growing as a team for sure. That's the biggest thing is every day there's growth. And obviously what Coach always says is there's failure that generates growth. And so the great thing about spring is it's just teaching and getting better. and changing your best every day, which is fun. I think as a team, it's great to be out there. We have a competitive spirit, and it's obviously a lot of fun at practice with what Coach Fleck, how he runs our practice. But specifically as our group, it's a lot. Right now we're developing, and we have a really different room because we have some depth and some older guys that have played a lot of reps for us. But then we have some extremely talented guys that are kind of coming along right now, and our goal in our room has been from day one, how many guys can we get game ready? And there's guys like, Jamison Gears that played 500 snaps last year for us, but there's guys like Pierce Walsh who hasn't played a snap really yet, meaningful snap at Minnesota. So we're in an urgent sprint right now to get guys like Pierce and those young guys ready to go.
Yeah, and it's obviously tight end is a unique position because you are involving pass catching, routes, all that stuff, and then blocking is particularly in the Big Ten. You need some blocking tight ends. Gophers have had some good ones over the years. You think of, a guy you coached last year, Nick Koehler, who was a bulldozer. Go Gopher has been a bulldozer at times. He's in the NFL now. And then you got some pass catchers, Brevin Spanford over the years, and Jamison Gears. And not to suggest either of those guys aren't blockers, but it's a unique position, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a unique position in the sense that pretty much every capacity of the offense we're involved in an important role. Like you said, in the pass game, we run routes and catch balls like receivers. In the run game, we're an extension of Coach Callahan's offensive line. And even in the pass game, we're asked to protect the passer at times as well. So there's a multitude of skill sets that you have to play the position well. And it's very interesting to see is every guy kind of has their niche, what they're good at. But at Minnesota, they have to be able to do all the things. And that's the development piece of it, is getting guys to be able to do everything that the position requires in our offense. It's a lot of work, and our guys have a great approach to it, and I'm really proud of the way they're going about it every day.
And it seems too that the tight end room probably gets overlooked a little bit in terms of how good of an athlete you have to be to play tight end, because they're bigger guys. Maybe they're not running 4.3 40s, but there are guys who will run that. There are guys who have 40-inch verticals, probably none out of the tight end room. But when you factor it all together, those guys are probably some of the better athletes on the team when you factor in speed, size, quickness, agility, all the necessary skill set.
Yeah, I guess I point to Nick probably as the most recent example of that. And obviously the guys in the room would follow this trend as well. But, Nick at his pro day was probably close to 6'6", between 6'5" and 6'6". I don't know the exact measurement. I know he probably weighed between 265 and 270, and he probably ran in the low 4.7s, high 4.6s. That's not normal.
That's a good athlete.
That's not normal to be that big and to run and move like that. And, our nickname in our room is we're the big bodies. And obviously because you are athletic, but you also have the size and length that we do, that's why the positions has to do so many things, which is really fun. I mean, it's something different every day, and it's a challenge different every play. And because of their athleticism and their size, that's why it is.
We mentioned Koehler up last year. He was probably, I would guess, I'm just on a hunch saying he was probably the leader of that room last year. And PJ's talked about, player-led teams are the better teams. So you want your positional group, you want to lead them, but you want some player leadership there as well. I know Brevin and Go Gopher and others over the years, I'm probably forgetting guys, kind of have passed the torch, so to speak. So is Jamison now kind of the guy as the leader that you mentioned? He's played 500 reps and had a good year last year?
Without a doubt. J-Mo and also Frank.
Bierman, yeah.
Frank probably isn't as sexy as J-Mo, but Frank he's incredibly physical and does a lot of jobs. J-Mo's the guy everybody notices because he's so athletic. He's good looking and runs well and all that stuff. He's hard to miss, right? But those two guys, there's an unbelievable culture that's been set in our room for being player-led, for being self-sufficient, doing things together. That goes back long before I became the tight end coach. And I think it's really cool how guys like Co and Brevin and Nick, and now the guys in the room right now have passed that along. It's an unbelievable group of human beings to work with every day. And a lot of it is because of the leadership of the older players.
Give us some names of the younger guys you said that have some talent. I know you mentioned Pierce Walsh, who I know a year ago at this time, he was starting to get in into some reps that he would have played last fall, right? But then he just had the season-ending injury. So him with who else in that room?
Yeah, Jacob Simpson is incredibly athletic. He's unique, long athlete that can run, jump, catch, is really growing into a blocker as well. And then Julian Johnson's the other young guy that most notably, Julian looks like Nick as a young player. Julian's 6'6", he's long, he's athletic. He's going to be a really dominant blocker, I think, as he develops his strength with Coach Nickel in the weight room. And all of those guys have the raw materials and the mental makeup to be good players. We just have to continue developing them in practice situations and plug in correct fundamentals in the scheme under the pressure of practice to see if they can do it at a rate where they do become game ready, where they can help the Gophers on a Saturday.
Is this time of year now what's happening? How important is it for those young guys at this juncture in their career?
Yeah, I think it's critical. There's only certain times during the calendar year where you get to develop, where all your efforts are in a development. And that's why I love spring ball, because it's teaching and developing every day. Kids growing and getting better. And so this time of year, we're practice 7 today. We got today and a few more opportunities here in the next couple of weeks where, man, it's critical to a player that's in their second year or their first year. And I feel like those young guys are taking advantage of their opportunities, and their approach to every day and their intent in practice has been the right way to grow and get better. How
do you evaluate them then in terms of, I don't know if there's a depth chart at this point, but just in terms of, who's progressing, and then how do you report that then to PJ Fleck, the head coach, and then you guys determine as you, obviously get into fall camp, you'll have a much better idea, but how do you go about your evaluation process?
Yeah, right now there is no starters, right? Right now we're literally attempting to get better every day. That's what we want to do. We'll sort out the depth chart and roles when we get closer to playing Buffalo, right?
Yep.
So really, it's not so much we're talking about a depth chart. Coach Fleck's a great football coach. He can go to his strength is he can watch the film and he knows exactly how he wants it to look. And I think right now our role as assistants in the tight end room is getting the room to look the way we want it to do, play after play after play. And the development piece is, like you said, not necessarily to develop a depth chart right now, but more so to develop who can go play in a game right now for us, who can execute the fundamentals and the correct fundamentals that we want in the scheme that we have. And then coach has a unique way of putting pressure on the guys in practice with different scenarios and situations, who can do it under the pressure of the situation, and that's every day really what we're doing.
I suppose, too, the name of the game in coaching, and it might differ from player to player because each guy has strengths, each guy has weaknesses, is that this is the time that you can evaluate individually. Here's what you do well. Here's where we need you to get better. If you want to play, this is the key. Or you're so good at this, you're going to play, but if you even get better at this, you're going to get more reps. And how do you balance you're really good at that, and just think if you even get a little better at that, but we also want to put time in where you really got to get better.
Yeah, I think the thing is you want to always enhance the guys and feature guys' special abilities. In Jacob Simpson's case, you want to get him detached from line of scrimmage or from the core of the line of scrimmage and let him run around and catch balls because that's what he's really good at, right? But we also want to do things that develop him as a blocker, because if you can't block, you're a wide receiver. Not that the wide receivers don't block, but they don't block attached to the line of scrimmage as much as we do. So there's always something with that. And in our room, we talk about you can either clip fingernails with fingernail clippers, or you can take a chainsaw and get rid of it. And that's kind of our deal. We find something that's wrong and we're taking a chainsaw. We want to fix it now. And we're not real gentle about doing it. So I think that you can't fix everything every day. Coach Fleck's very good with us about pointing, what are we going to get better today in your room? And our guys are very good at, okay, this is something that has to change from yesterday to today. And in most cases with guys, it's, okay, I'm really good at running and catching. I probably got to block a little better. I'm seen as a blocker. Let's get better at running and catching. That's in our world. That's kind of the tight end every day.
Yeah. You mentioned PJ Fleck has a unique ability. I think people see him on TV or watch him on games, and certainly he's got this optimistic, high-spirited approach, and I'm just a big fan of it. But you're right, he also has this sneaky ability to get on people, right? Not only the players, but I'm sure as a coaching staff, he'll let you guys know, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that. What's it been like, coaching for him now in year 3 with you?
Yeah, it's This is why I'd say working for Coach Fleck. One, you know what you're getting every day as a player and a coach. Like, he is exactly the same, which I think if you have a boss, that's all you can ask for. Is you want someone that is going to be consistent, which he's extremely consistent. And then two, Coach never is in a situation where he's asking you to do anything that you don't want to do. You know, and our guys have dreams, coaches have dreams and goals. And Coach Fleck, really, he knows what he wants the Minnesota Gopher football program to look like. Very rarely, if we do a great job in recruiting and in his case, hiring staff, do what he wants it to look like and what the individual's goal don't match up.
Right.
So in one capacity, you say like Coach Fleck, man, he's really demanding and he has high expectations, which I hope that's what everybody wants in the organization. But really, at the end of the day, Coach Fleck's just holding you to what you want to achieve. And I think that PJ has a very pointed educational, situational, pressure sometimes way to get that out of human beings, coaches and players alike. So I love it every day because I think that not only our coach but our players get better every day because of the expectation for you to achieve your goals, right? Your dreams.
Yeah.
And Coach Fleck is he's the catalyst and the leader of holding people accountable to those things.
He has talked often about he's not for everybody, right? He's got a pretty unique approach in the coaching world. A lot of people look from afar, and I think it's one of two reactions, like, man, I want to get hitched to that guy, or that's out of my, I'm not interested in that. What has it been like for you now coming in, because there is a unique approach and understanding and now working in this row the boat culture? Yeah, so, obviously I coached against Coach Fleck when he was at Western Michigan and also here at Minnesota. When you were at Miami.
When I was in Miami, yeah. So, I always, whenever you put on the film of the Gophers, I always said this. I said this multiple times in the staff meetings when I was a coordinator. I'd say, hey, when you turn on their film, I'd be proud if that's the way our team played. And part of my attraction to coming here 3 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago, was I was really curious, like, how do they get their teams to play as hard as they do and to execute at the level they do? And then I got here, and it was kind of a leap of faith. I knew Coach Harbaugh a little bit. We had a lot of common connections, but I didn't know Coach Fleck.
Right.
And it's like, everybody probably that works knows sometimes you have a boss or an organization you work with and you're like, man, you just fit. And you're like, I really believe in how we do things. And that's how it's been for me in the last 2.5 years here, going into year 3. I believe in the vision. I believe in how we do things. I believe in Coach's philosophy of a life program and to develop kids outside of just the game, athletically, academically, socially, and spiritually. Like, that's fun for me as a coach. That's really what I'm about as a coach. Really, if I think of the core of me, what I want to do, and also our players. And so although it's been a change for me because every organization does things a little bit differently, at the end of the day, the core beliefs of what Coach believes in, man, they're what I believe in, and the people in our building too. So if you find a right fit like that, it's really, really enjoyable to come to work, and it's really enjoyable to work with people. And that's what Coach has developed in the whole organization. So coming to work, it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
It's hard. What we do is hard at this level, and working for Coach is hard because there's expectations. But to say it's not enjoyable and to say that you don't feel like you're achieving something every day, that wouldn't be true,
You mentioned, you called it a leap of faith. You were offensive coordinator in the MAC at Miami of Ohio, and so you just felt like you had been in that league enough. You had been around good coaches in that league and been on good teams. Almost beat the Gophers here in a game in 2021. What was it about the leap of faith you wanted to say, I want to try my hand at another spot in the Big Ten as an analyst, is how you started here? Yeah. Almost like a sabbatical year. Yeah, so, you've been a coordinator for a long time, and I've been with the same group of people, and I'm not a move-around guy. Most of my stops have not been, I've had one stop, a year stop. Other than that, they're typically long periods of time. So I haven't been a mover and shaker. That's not what I was about in coaching. But I knew there was something else out there. I just wanted to learn more, really, to be honest. Yeah. I've been kind of with the same group of people, and I wanted to learn something different. I wanted to see football at the highest level and see what was the difference. I'm not well connected. I'm a small college guy, like you mentioned at the beginning, coaching at a place like Wartburg. And this was a place I was very curious about.
And I was curious how Coach Fleck did it, and ultimately that was the decision.
Yeah.
Is I want to grow, I want to learn, but I'm really curious how they do that there, and that was really ultimately the decision. And then just once I got on the phone with Coach Fleck and the energy and his vision for everything, man, I was all in. So
ready to go.
Took the leap of faith, right? It wasn't really a leap of faith when it was all said and done. I thought it was a very calculated and smart move for my career.
Yeah, a year as an analyst, you helped with game planning, film study, and then now a couple of years as a position coach.
Yeah, and year 2 as a tight end coach is obviously a lot easier than year 1. So it's been fun.
Let me talk about a sponsor real quick. We're going to talk more about the Gopher football team here. We first want to mention Affinity Plus. It's your local credit union, proudly serving Minnesota since 1930. If you're a current Gopher student or a proud Gopher alum, that makes you eligible to join this financial that wants to build a meaningful banking relationship and put you first. You can meet with a local employee at any of their branches statewide, including right off campus here in Minneapolis on University Avenue. To learn more and find other ways to connect, here's their webpage, affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. That's affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union, federally insured by NCUA, people-centered banking, perfect for Gophers. This is episode 165, the Go Gopher Podcast, right in the middle of spring football, so it's a good time to catch up generally, and then specifically as well with tight ends coach Eric Koehler. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about, too, is your background has been you were a college wide receiver, you were an offensive coordinator, a quarterbacks coach, and all of that. So I got to ask you, from afar and not that far away, what is the quarterback situation looking like here for the Golden Gophers with this battle in spring?
Yeah, well, I will say this: I don't watch the quarterbacks as much now. It's amazing because things happen in practice. I'm staring at the tight end, and I don't even know what's going on back there. But I think that's a great room. Coach Harbaugh and Keegan O'Hare have done an amazing job building a room with a lot of depth and talent. And, Coach Harbaugh is pretty well proven that if he gets the opportunity to coach guys, and I'm going back to even his beginning of his career, he really develops players, and I think you're going to see tremendous development. And not only that, I think Greg has done a great job of recruiting the room too. So the talent level combined with Greg's ability to develop players, I think you're going to find that room is going to continue to play at a high level. And I think obviously that's proved with Max. Max had experience, don't get me wrong. He had played a lot of football. He hadn't played a lot of football at this level, and he hadn't played any football in our offense. And him and Greg working together, and Greg doing what he did with Max in just a short period of time. I'm really excited to see what Greg does with these guys because he has a little more time with them and time to develop them. So it's going to be an exciting room.
Yeah, and nowadays the quarterback position, it's not like new that it's important, but I think in today's game, if you don't have good quarterback play, it is hard to win, right?
It's the most important position in the building. I say that as a quarterback guy by trade back in the day. And I always said, like, you're coaching that guy and recruiting that position for everybody in the building's family.
Yeah.
That's a fact. That guy has the ball in his hands every snap, and his decisions typically have an impact on winning and losing. And I think Greg is, if anybody that I've been around, understands the urgency and the importance of that. And I think their approach every day would reflect that.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Max Brosmer was such a good year last fall, and he also, brought Drake under his wing last year, and there's some other guys now, a transfer from Georgia Tech as well, all involved there. So it's probably been a fun spring to see that unfold.
Yeah, it's been exciting. And the tribute I would give to Max for that room more than any, obviously his play was incredible. But I think that what he did is he put a culture and set a standard in that room for how you handle your business in your preparation, which is the most critical thing in there. And those guys that were in there with Max have taken that to heart and are really following that kind of trend and tradition that he developed there in just a short amount of time.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Couple of things. So, Greg, you mentioned, Greg, that you and he, through various backgrounds, and I'm sure coaches' clinics, been in the same league twice now. you were familiar with each other. What's it been like working for him, with him now as an offensive coordinator, you as an offensive coordinator in your previous job, with that experience to kind of mesh together? What is your, like in the fall, let's say, what is your week like? How much input are you there helping Greg with?
Well, we got obviously incredible offensive staff, so all of them, and Coach Simon and Coach Callahan have been around for so long and are so familiar with what we want to do that I'm just a piece of it. I'm a piece of it. I would say that my wife would tell you I spend more time with Greg than I do her during the season. We have a very close relationship. He's not only a colleague and someone I work with, I would call Greg a close friend of mine. We sometimes, like you said, you get whatever, you make your own luck, but you get lucky, and not dissimilar from my relationship and how I feel about PJ. I feel the same way about Greg, and he's a brilliant, young, dynamic coach, recruiter, incredibly intelligent, can take information. And the thing that he is so good at is take a lot of information, a lot of ideas, because when you're the coordinator, everybody's coming at you with something that they think is a good idea, and building that into something that's best for us as an offense and best for the Minnesota football program. And his growth just since I've been here has been incredible. And I think he's one of the best I've been around. And he has such an upside because he's so, he's not young. I'm not saying, he's getting ready to have 3 kids here shortly. It's not like he's a young guy, but he's young in his career in terms of his upside is tremendous of what he can become. And as a friend, I'm really proud of what he does every day, and it's fun to work with him too.
Yeah, and he was the tight ends coach here before he was the offensive coordinator. So does he offer you some tips as well on the positional part of it?
Yeah, it's funny because obviously having been a quarterback guy for a long time.
You guys were both kind of that way, right? He was a quarterback guy and did tight ends.
He was too, yeah. So we're kind of, we were in the same room for a year together with the quarterbacks. But I coached the tight end coach a lot as a coordinator, but I'd never coached the tight ends directly. And Greg has been instrumental in my transition to that position. And I think that we talk a lot because he coached the tight ends, I've coached quarterbacks. We have a lot of discussions about, hey, would you do this way? Or would you do the drop this way? Hey, how about the first step on this block here? So it's really beneficial to have someone that you can bounce ideas, almost have a clinician in your building that you can share ideas with both ways. It's been great.
On game day, I should know this and I don't. Are you on the field or in the press box?
Well, my first year as an analyst, I was on the field because of some rules that the NCAA had at that time. But now I actually sit right next to Greg now.
Yeah.
So it's great. I'm in the box. I'm right next to him. I sit right on his right. Every once in a while when they're getting him on TV, they sneak me in there too. It's a good deal, right?
Then your family says, hey.
Yeah, they're not talking about me. They're talking about Coach Harbaugh, but I happen to be there. So no, I'm with him on game day. So it's great sitting next to him as he calls the game.
So it's 3rd and 4, could be a rundown, could be a pass down. He's hammering out, in 30 seconds, got to figure out now with the new headsets and everything. How much then will you, in the heat of the moment kind of a thing like that, say, what about this? Or how about this? Or how do you guys work together that way?
Yeah, in the moment, rarely do we talk. When you're calling the game, it's best if it's quiet, to be honest with you. In fact, one of the hard things when you're calling the game, because there is a lot of chatter on the thing, people talking, sometimes you just need to be quiet so you can call plays.
Take the headphones off.
Can I please just call the play? Everybody be quiet for a second. Most of the conversations that him and I have with all the offensive staff is when we're between series.
Yeah, the defense is out there.
Yeah, the defense is out there, and we talk about maybe, hey, we called this last, and they played something a certain way, and that's one of the great things about working for Greg is he's really open to suggestion. He does a great job of taking a lot of suggestions and put it into what he wants to do. But yeah, our conversations typically aren't in the moment of him calling the game.
Gotcha. And then from that standpoint, though, what then are you specifically watching for when the game, as the game progresses, play to play?
Yeah, it depends week to week, truthfully.
Really?
Most of the time, it's the defensive look because we spend a lot of time on the defense, and our quarterback doesn't go to the line of scrimmage and snap the ball. He has a lot of responsibility he does at the line of scrimmage. So seeing how people are playing this a lot of times determines what we're going to do after even Greg has called the play.
Sure.
So a lot of times seeing that, and then obviously as a position coach, you always kind of gravitate to seeing how your guys doing. So you see some of that, but a lot of times something specifically with the defense as it relates to our game plan is what I'm looking at up there.
Yeah. In practice during the week and during spring and whenever else, one of the things that I noticed, and it probably wasn't the first time I saw it, but I remember when Greg Harbaugh was the tight ends coach, how much that some of the drills in practice with the tight ends also involve the tackle. And I just remember him calling the signals. And now I see you do that now for the last couple of years. And obviously those teammates are important. So take me through, you were a quarterback, you were a wide receiver coach. Now you're on certain drills working with offensive tackles as well. So take me through some of those drills and what the importance of those are.
Yeah, because basically in any of our run schemes and some of our pass schemes, obviously, we're working with the tackles. So Coach Callahan does a great job. He takes the centers and guards, and Coach Bain, our offensive line assistant, and I will take the tackles and tight ends and work on combinations, however they relate to the run scheme. And that's something we do almost every day.
Yeah.
Because we are in the run game, we're an extension of the O-line. We're not the O-line. Those guys are, they block for a living. But we have to be a adequate extension of them and do things at the level that they do. So we work with them a lot on different looks and how the defensive end is playing us, and maybe the linebacker we're double teaming to, how he plays. So that's an important role of the tight end coach, really. So, and I say that now, looking back on my career, the advantage of being the tight end coach, and I think Greg is having this advantage as a coordinator because you work with every group, is an incredible experience for a coordinator.
Sure.
And yeah. I think that's probably part of why Greg grew into the offense coordinator here.
Yeah, because you think about the tight ends also, some of those tight ends on occasion will line up in the backfield, right? Frank last year did a lot of that, and you had the quarterback, the tush push or whatever you want to call
sure.
it, where you had a couple of those guys doing the deal, and then Jameson got a touchdown down in Illinois out of that look, and I know last year in the bowl game he got a TD out of that look as well. So you're right, because some might line up as an H-back or a fullback or what have you, and some are working with tackles and some want to catch passes, and so there is a lot of crossover there.
Yeah, one of the things we have to be in our room is versatile.
Yeah.
A tight end has to be versatile because we'll line up like a wide receiver, we'll line up like an O-lineman, we'll line up like a running back.
Yeah.
And so that versatility in recruiting is important, obviously, but then obviously you got to have smart guys.
Yeah.
And that is one of the fun things about playing the position.
So this kid from Penn State, Tyler Warren, right? He lined up at quarterback. So
yeah.
Do we have any guy that can maybe?
Well, I'm not gonna ruin anything, but you never know. There might be a guy on the team that could line up under center at some point. Or maybe you're recruiting a guy that could do that at some point too.
Right.
But Tyler Warren was a high school quarterback that ended up being a tremendous tight end. And you never know. If you find a lot of times tight ends, if you look at tight ends when they're in high school, they were not tight ends.
Right.
They played another position. So I think sometimes when you get a player that has a skill set like Tyler Warren may have had in high school, you can use that and leverage that once they get to college. And I think the ability to do that and the openness to do that, great. That's one of the fun things being around a young guy like Greg who's super innovative and is open to new things. Sometimes you get an old curmudgeon OC and he don't want to change anything, right? Just do what he does. And so we're good at using personnel. So if we got that right guy, we probably do some of that too.
That'd be fun. We'll keep an eye out for that. One more quick commercial here, and we want to talk about the weather. It's warming up, although as we record today, I'm by the way dressed out in my Twins gear. I'm headed to the home opener here, but it is going to warm up, we promise, and that means it's time to put away the ice augers and it's time to get out on the water, grab the boat, and do some fishing. And you can let the OnX Fish app help you find the next best bite. The Fish app offers the most comprehensive fishing tool for increasing your success on the water. Use the Fish app to find new places to fish. You can sort by lakes, species, abundance, trophy, and keeper potential. OnX Fish also shows you hot spots, lake-by-lake regulations, and private and public land ownership info. Download OnX Fish on the App Store or go to onxmaps.com/fish to get more information about the app that is changing the game on the water. Eric Koehler is with us. He's the tight ends coach, and we have have hinted over the course of the podcast so far about your coaching journey. We've talked about your time at Wartburg College, where you were the head coach there for a couple of years, assistant prior to that, and then moved on to Grand Valley State there with Chuck Martin and Coach Mitchell and others, and Miami, and now here. So take me all the way back. You're a high school and a college wide receiver in the state of Indiana.
Yeah, so in high school I did everything.
Yeah.
I was coach's kid, and wide receiver, quarterback, running back. I kicked, I punted, I returned kicks. You're kind of at a small high school, and your dad's the coach, so you kind of do everything.
Yeah.
And coaching background, coaching family. My brother's actually a head coach at high school in northern Indiana by South Bend at Elkhart now. We're a coaching family, and that's how it got started. And I say all the time, I don't think I had really much of a choice. I graduated from college and haven't worked a day in my life, is how I feel about it, really. And then I grew up in a rural area on a farm. We had a property, a land out in the middle of nowhere in Indiana, northwest Indiana. And I say all the time, there's two careers. It's just kind of what you are, and one's a farmer. I don't think a farmer ever thinks he's working. It's kind of what they are. And two is a coach. And we couldn't afford to have the land to be a farmer, but we went into coaching. So that's kind of where my wife's dad was a coach as well. So I didn't trick her when she got into it.
Yeah, she knew what she was getting into.
She knew she was getting into. Yeah, she's been an incredible part. Heidi's been an incredible part of my career and journey too. So it's been a fun ride. Yeah.
So it's the family business, so to speak. So what is that like when your brother and you talk on the phone? When you've had other conversations with other family members, whether it's even on your wife's side of the family, I suppose, right?
Yeah, so it's just really the only coach that's left right now are me and my brother. I have two brothers. One's in the private sector, but one is coaching. And really during football, that's about all the discussion that happens in the Koehler family. Yeah. Our parents have been extremely supportive of our careers and growing up and all those things. And it's been this game's provided a lot for our family, and we're obviously very fortunate and super fortunate to be in Minnesota now, Heidi and I. But yeah, it's been an incredible life to be a part of football really since birth.
I was going to ask, as a coach's kid, when's the first time you remember picking up a football?
Yeah, so a long time. I probably can't tell you when. Yeah. I guess for as long as I can remember being out, the smell of grass out the practice field and two-a-days and going out to practice and then being a ball boy, all the things that a typical coach's kid does. Yeah. I did, and when you're 5'7" and playing at a small high school in Indiana, it's not like there's a lot of Big Ten schools recruiting you. So you keep playing at a small college football, and then you get done with college and you're thinking, well, what the heck? I don't know if I'm going to go to next year. I've been a part of a football team my whole life, and you start coaching, and making nothing, and next thing you know, you're working for PJ Fleck in Minnesota. So I'm super fortunate, and there's been a lot of people along the way that have helped me get to this point where I'm with Coach, and I couldn't be more grateful than to be in Minneapolis with Coach Fleck in Minnesota.
Yeah, you mentioned that path when you were out of college, Hanover, right?
Yeah.
College. What was your option, and where did the path start?
Well, I actually taught high school for a year, not dissimilar from Coach Fleck. I have an education degree, and so I taught for a year, and I realized I didn't really want to be in a classroom all day, if you want to know the truth. So I took a GA, like most guys, took a GA spot at a small school in Massachusetts, and moved out to just outside of Boston. And my mom and dad thought I would move to Mars. We're from the Midwest, and I was out there just for a year, and then just work your way up. I'm a small college football product that's worked with a lot of good coaches and great people, and you gotta get lucky a little bit along the way and meet the right people, but obviously Coach Fleck's given me the most exciting opportunity in my career and all that.
We got to talk about the Wartburg stint because as we joked about at the start, I'm a Luther guy. Our paths have crossed with mutual friends. You recruited kids that went to much younger than me, obviously, but kids that went to my high school, which is about 90 miles from Waverly, Iowa, in Wartburg. My dad went to Wartburg for 2 years, and then he decided school wasn't for him and went to the the Army. But my great aunt, his aunt, was back then they called it, I forget what she's no longer with us, but she was the house mother or something in the dorms, where back then they would have a lady that would live in the dorms and just be in charge of everything. So that's how he got there. So I have some, despite my Luther connections, I have some Wartburg roots as well, and it's such a great school, and they've really put a focus on athletics. So you went how did you get from where were you at prior to?
Yeah, I was at a school in my home state of Indiana, Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology, actually.
Really?
Yeah, incredible engineers. We weren't incredible at football when I was there.
Yeah.
And then I had an opportunity just through a common connection. I went out and worked for Rick Willis at Wartburg, and was there for 4 years, and then had the opportunity to become the head coach before I moved on to Grand Valley State. And so there's not a high school in the state of Iowa that I haven't been in. And we recruited the southern Minnesota area when I was there too. And so actually Marcus Hendrickson, our director of player personnel, played at Luther, and I coached when Marcus was a player. I was a young coach, so I think Marcus actually beat Wartburg one time. That might be one of the few times.
Probably about the last time they've done it. So when I was in school, Wartburg was not as good then. That was late 80s, early 90s, and I think Luther beat him a couple of times during my time. I was doing the games on the student radio station, the football games, and Marcus's older brother Milt, he was a freshman on the football team my senior year. We played I was on the baseball team at Luther, and so he from day one started at first base baseball and started on the football team. So he was a dual sport athlete. He was pretty good basketball too. He probably could have played hoops. He's now with the Packers, of course, as the number 2 guy in charge of their personnel. So it's weird some of the paths that cross over that time. Another connection is a longtime baseball coach at Wartburg, who now, way back, he was also the defensive coordinator for the football team while he was coaching baseball at Wartburg. Joel Holtz was my high school coach. He was at West Delaware, then he moved around, and then really a legendary career down there. Went to the Division III World Series several times.
Holtz's office was next to mine for years.
So you guys hung out together, and
great guy.
And now he's back into coaching some high school baseball as he's kind of moved on to a little less hectic point of his life as well. Rick Willis, what was he like to coach for and with?
Great. I learned a lot from Rick. Rick was a incredible organizer of the program. That's what I really learned from Rick, and he's a great football coach. He's a vice president at Wartburg now, and those experiences are awesome. You look back and how many people impacted your life and your career, and it makes you grateful. Honestly, because I bet there's nobody else in the building that I called a game at Augsburg. Yeah. I've coached. So I drive by that stadium and remember I was sitting on top of that press box calling a game, and I get to drive into the Athlete Village every day now to coach. So you learn a lot along your career, and I think your career, Max talked about this a lot coming from New Hampshire, but when you come from smaller levels and have the opportunity to be at a place like Minnesota, I think it just makes you even more grateful for what you have and the kids you work with and the people you work with at this level, what's afforded to us.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the same boat a little bit, coming from small town as well, and then small market radio, and then you get a break here and you break there, and before you know it, you're
going to the Twins opener.
You're going to the Twins opener, and you're calling football games at the Big House and the Horseshoe and here and Williams Arena with basketball, and those. And I do have to take a moment sometimes, like if you get in a crummy mood about something, you have to say, hey, come on now. You got it pretty good.
Yeah.
Right?
No doubt.
At the end of the day. So you go from there to Grand Valley State, from Wartburg to Grand Valley State, and you connect with Chuck Martin.
Yeah.
Which, as you go through your coaching career, I would guess that he had some influence.
Yeah, incredible football coach. I was with Chuck for a couple of years at Grand Valley State before he left and went to Notre Dame as the offensive coordinator, and with Brian.
Because he had Brian Kelly, because he was at Grand Valley prior.
Yeah,
right?
Coach Kelly was at Grand Valley before Coach Martin, and so kind of part of that Grand Valley tree, actually, Coach Mitchell is who I worked for when Chuck left and went to Notre Dame. Matt Mitchell, who's now the outside linebackers coach at Wisconsin.
Yeah, we don't recognize him either.
No, it's funny because we worked together and the tight ends were blocking his position group last year, so pretty well actually. So
no doubt.
So we, you go back and there's all kinds of ways you get to where you're at, and then obviously when Coach Martin went to Miami of Ohio, I went with him there, and how you think about it, if I don't meet Chuck Martin, I probably don't coach against PJ Fleck.
Yeah.
You don't have the respect and admiration for how they do things at Western Michigan. And then obviously the incredible year they had. I was in the league that year. They won undefeated. And so it's amazing how things, I'm just sitting here thinking about how things all connect.
That old butterfly effect.
It's amazing, right? And so, yeah, it's humble beginnings and grateful for where you're at. And the great thing is it doesn't matter where I've been, where my feet are at is where I've been excited about being. Yeah. And I love watching kids come in and develop and seeing what they are from 18 to 23. And I know that's what Coach Fleck hangs his hat on too. That's why I think we mesh so well. And you get to do that at every level. Coaching's coaching. And it's incredible how, even though there's things here that are different and there's resources and things that we have at our disposal, and playing in Huntington Bank Stadium, our facilities are incredible. But really, what you want to do with a student athlete, whether it be at Wartburg College or the University of Minnesota, are the same goals.
Yeah.
You want the kid to develop athletically, academically, socially, spiritually, and you want the kid to walk out here at 23-year-old with a life ahead of him that he's prepared to go out and have incredible success. And I know we do that here.
Miami of Ohio too has, they're the cradle of coaches, right? And think about some of the coaches that walked through there: Woody Hayes, Bo Schembechler, more recent times, the late Terry Hepner, the late Randy Walker. There's been some pretty good head coaches. Chuck Martin now has a nice resume as well.
John Harbaugh, Sean McVay, both grads. Yeah, it's an incredible tradition there.
Yeah.
And even not just working for Coach Martin there, getting exposed to some of those guys while you're there and getting to meet them and sit down and talk to them and things, that's incredible for growing and, developing as a coach too, which I think Coach Martin does a great job, but obviously the connection with that place, you get some exposure to some people maybe you wouldn't have if there wasn't that tradition. So that was really fun in the years I was there too.
Was McVay played for Miami of Ohio? I forgot about that. He played at the Metrodome against the Gophers, and I think he had like a catch for 8 yards back in the day. I remember looking that up, but I'd forgotten about that until you just said it. Now Super Bowl winner.
Yeah.
And now his coaching tree is off the hook, man.
Yeah, he has a statue in the cradle of coaches in the end zone there too. Him and John Harbaugh both when I was there, both got inducted.
Yeah. So it's a pretty good football tradition. I mean, they take it pretty seriously there, right?
Yeah, football is really important in the state of Ohio in general.
Right.
It's Southwest Ohio and the Cincinnati area is where Oxford is located. So it's obviously super important from the Jones Junior High up to the college ranks, obviously in that state. And so it was incredible coaching there where it was super important and not dissimilar from what it is here in Minneapolis.
Yeah, you think about some of those high schools, those legendary high school teams and the MAC teams that are in there. That's a lot of football.
Yeah, there's a lot of football in the state in general.
Yeah,
no
for
question.
Sure. Well, hey, it's been fun catching up. I know you've got stuff to do. We're in the middle of spring practice. You've got practice this afternoon, and if I keep you too long, we'll get you in trouble with Coach Fleck, so I don't want to do that. But it's been fun. That was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, and I really appreciate visiting with all kinds of different things about us.
Yeah, we had a fun time for sure. It's episode 165. He is Eric Koehler. My thanks again to Gopher tight ends coach Eric Koehler for joining me this week on the Go Gopher podcast. I hope you enjoyed hearing that conversation as much as I enjoyed being a part of it. Episode number 165 is presented by alumni-owned Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're buying or selling a business, visit sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com. We're also partnered with Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union, a locally member-owned full-service financial invested in you. You can learn more at affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. That's affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. OnX Fish also sponsors our show. Happy fishing. Again, I'd invite you to listen to past podcasts, and please be sure to click that subscribe button right now to the Go Gopher podcast. It's free to subscribe and free to listen at any time. And please share the link to the podcast with others so they can subscribe and listen as well. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please offer us some positive feedback on your social media channels. We'll talk again next week.